I'm gonna start by cooking some beautiful salmon fillets, and I'm sprinkling on just some prepared lemon pepper seasoning. Okay, can you see, Alex? So I'm gonna put the salmon down into a pretty hot skillet. I wanna sear the salmon. So I've got some oil in there and it's pretty hot. So I'm gonna let it sit there without moving it. I'm gonna go ahead and season the other side with the lemon pepper. And you might notice I have some fried eggs, sunny side up over here, that I've been just finishing frying. So I'm gonna let those sit. They're gonna continue to cook really slowly. We will hope that when it comes time to turn the salmon, it won't stick to the pan. Hope and pray. So the asparagus salad is absolutely amazing. Take a look at this, Alex. What I did was I just took spears of asparagus and a vegetable peeler and just shaved them into little ribbons, and I'm gonna make a salad out of this. So some lemon zest and olive oil, not too much, and some lemon. I'll just squeeze it in with just a couple more ingredients. So I've got some feta cheese, and look at this up close. This is herbed feta cheese, and that means the feta cheese has herbs in it.
Is that what that means?
That's what it means, that's what it means. Some crushed pistachios. So it's just a really amazing, like flavorful, crunchy, nutty salad. And then lots of mint leaves. Did I say the word crunchy? We love the word crunchy in our house. And then I'm gonna grab some salt and pepper as you go across. Don't worry. I need to get rubber bands to tie around my sleeves because I get letters. People worry. People worry about my sleeves. Okie doke. So look at this. Isn't this pretty? I mean, just on its own, I would totally dive into this. Lad Drummond, not so much. I forgot that I have a whole bunch of sliced sugar snap peas. So those go in. I kept looking at the salad thinking, why is this salad like so meager? And that's why one of the main ingredients wasn't in. So pretend you didn't see that. Okay, and then this goes on the platter. Ah, that's better. That's much, much better. Okay, and then spread it out. All right, how's that look so far?
Amazing.
Beautiful, right? And then I'm gonna grab a spatula. Got it? And let's see how these look. Let's see if they stick, if they stuck. That one, oh, that one didn't. It looks so good. All right, I'm gonna let the salmon finish cooking. It's gonna take about 2 to 3 minutes, and then we will finish off this beautiful dish. So here's what we do. I like it when salmon is just barely done. And then even when you take it out of the pan, it kind of keeps cooking. And then it doesn't get too dry, and it's just perfect by the time you get it to the table. Or the island, in this case. All right. Third piece and the fourth. And then prepare to be amazed. Ooh, I let these eggs get a little bit crispy around the edges, but I love that. So I just cooked these sunny side up, and how I do that is just put, oh no, except for that one. Oh, shoot. Oh man, slippery. We'll just do 3 fried eggs.
Yeah,
how does that
fine.
sound? We're gonna leave that 4th one out because it's gonna mess things up for us. Okay, so this is how, I'm gonna eat this for lunch, but I just put them in a hot skillet with butter and let them kind of set, and then I turn the heat to low, and I literally just leave them there until the eggs are, the whites are cooked and the yolks are still really runny. So more pistachios go on, and then more mint leaves, which I think is part of the thing that's so beautiful about this. And then a squeeze of lemon, especially over the salmon. This looks great. Oh, I forgot. I thought something, I'm forgetting ingredients left and right. Balsamic glaze. And here's what I like to do. This is truly one of the best ingredients known to man. I'll just do it mostly over the salmon. Just kind of do a little crisscross. Lemony salmon and asparagus salad with 3 eggs. Make sure you don't do 4 because that would ruin the dish.
We're gonna start with a little salt right on top. And I'm using kosher salt here. It's a weeknight, you know? We're not getting out the pink Himalaya salt on Wednesday. And then we're gonna kind of mimic the idea of blackening by mixing together some spices that are found in a classic blackening spice mix. Blackened fish, made traditionally, is dipped in clarified butter and then dipped in really spicy spices mixed with garlic, and that's what makes it stick. And then you cook it in a roaring hot pan. I kind of want to just take the essence of the blackening, which is some cayenne and paprika mixed together, and that's quite a bit of heat, right? Mixed with some garlic and dry mustard powder, one of my favorite spices. I love it so much. And then we're just gonna use a sifter, and this gives it a nice even layer, right? So every bite has a bit of spice distributed all over it. You don't have any clumps of overly spicy spices. We just arrange that right on your oiled tray. Leave a little space in between each piece of salmon so they get an opportunity to brown a little bit, right? And then what I love is you're just thinking, okay, this could almost be dinner right then and there. But we're gonna add to it a little bit of kale. I've got the equivalent of about 1 bunch of Tuscan kale here, ripped up in the pieces. You can leave them a little bit big because they're along for the ride with the salmon, so they're gonna cook a good 12 to 15 minutes, even longer if you like your salmon well done. Now here's the interesting thought about kale. I've torn most of the chewy ribs out of the center of these pieces of kale. And I'm just gonna add a little bit of olive oil, a couple tablespoons, pinch of salt, and just give it a quick massage. Interestingly enough, you know, we talk about massaged kale salads, right, where you add vinegar and you're supposed to let it sit on there, and they always say the vinegar, the acid makes the kale wilt and get kind of droopy. It's actually the oil soaking into the cuticles of the kale that makes the kale more tender. It's not the vinegar or the acid. The vinegar, the lemon juice bounces off the kale. It's getting the oil inside the kale that really gets it more tender.
Oh, what's that?
Cuticles. Couple cloves of just chopped up garlic, and then we literally just, and this, to me, it's also just so inviting. It just looks like it's gonna be fantastic. And if this is a little bit generous on the portion, honestly, I love eating this just chilled the next day, almost like you would a little scoop of tuna salad. Instead, you have some of this leftover salmon. I just sprinkle any garlic left in the bowl on there shamelessly. And then just a little sprinkle over top of some dried oregano.
I like it that you put it on the end. I think it's more pronounced.
Okay, and this just goes right into a 400-degree oven. And you just cook it as long as you want your salmon to be cooked. So medium rare, I'm thinking 12 to 15 minutes. More well done, leave it in there for 20. The kale can hang. You put some fish and greens in front of Jeff and Jeffrey, and you just get happiness, which I love. Little lime zest right on top.
That's an Iron Chef trick.
Yeah, just wake it up a little bit. You could totally use a lemon, by the way, but I kind of prefer that kind of more floral and almost bitter note from lime. And then I literally just cut it and just squeeze some lime right over the fish. Not so much over the kale, but we really want it to be over the fish.
You could just serve it on that, right to the table.
Yeah, right in the middle
Stack
of the
of
table.
plates, have at it.
So I have a fish purveyor who puts honey on all his fish, and I thought that was just ridiculous. I'd never cooked a piece of fish until and like you said, over the quarantine, you've kind of learned a little bit of what you like.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, the tiniest. You don't even know.
What'd you just do? I don't even know. I didn't say nothing.
I don't know. Did you see it?
Yeah, no, and I know, like, I know a lot of chef friends of mine, they drizzle a little really good sherry vinegar on the top.
Can you hear the kale, the crunch of it rustling right on top? Look at that, so pretty. And like you said, put the tray in the middle of the table on a trivet and dinner is served.
Next is Asian grilled salmon. I can't tell you how many times I've made this, and I guarantee you it's really easy. But it's also elegant. So I'm gonna start with a nice piece of salmon, this beautiful center cut salmon. The idea of this recipe is I'm gonna make a marinade, pour half of it over the salmon, and then after the salmon's grilled, pour the other half over. So it becomes both a marinade and a sauce, and it keeps it really moist and flavorful. So I'm gonna cut 5 or 6 slices. Just make sure you get all the way through the skin. I'm gonna take these slices and just put them in a dish, and I'm gonna marinate them in. This is about 3 pounds of salmon. You want to figure about a half a pound per person. Okay. Now I'm going to make the marinade. So I have a half a teaspoon of fresh chopped garlic in the bowl. Gives it a nice bite. I need 2 tablespoons of good Dijon mustard. That's about 2 tablespoons. 3 tablespoons of good soy sauce. This is the Asian part of the Asian marinated salmon. And 6 tablespoons of good olive oil. I like California olive oil. I think it's got a good flavor, but it's not too strong for the sauce. I'm just going to whisk this together. This sauce is particularly great because the mustard emulsifies it. So we're just going to pour half on, spread it out. Okay, great. Asian grilled salmon is just done. Perfect. So you can either take the skin off or not, but I think it's just fine with the skin on. Really up to you. Okay. I'm going to turn it over on this plate. Ooh, that looks good. I'm turning it over particularly. It looks nice that way, but I want the sauce to get into the meat of the salmon. This is a hot and messy job. I think 4 pieces will be perfect for 3 of us. Whoa. I'm just going to put the sauce on next. Okay, I'm just going to put the rest of the sauce on. Keeps the fish really moist and flavorful. Don't use the marinade from the raw fish.
Salmon has amazing properties, like it has a lot of fat in it, good fat, a lot of omega-3s, and the only way to really take advantage of the salmon's fat is to let it melt slowly. There's a couple of different steps here. We need some Idaho potatoes, obviously we need some salmon, we need some mustard, some lemon, and then some fresh herbs and some olive oil. And then you need something to cook it in. This is an earthenware dish called the cazuela. If you don't have something like this, you can cook it in any kind of vessel that is oven proof safe, okay? So first things first, we're gonna get going with our potato. So I'm gonna peel the potatoes. And I know a lot of people have questions out there about whether you should peel the potatoes or not. You don't have to peel the potatoes as long as you wash them well. But I just think from a presentation standpoint, it just kind of looks really, really nice and clean. But again, like when I was growing up, my mother used to say to me, like, all the vitamins are in the skin. I don't even know if that's true. I think she just wanted me to eat the skin. So who knows? But as a kid, like, you don't want to eat the skin on the potatoes usually. You want all the skin off. So we'll take the skin off. It's totally fine. All right. So I'm going to slice these up very thinly. And we're going to roast these first in the cazuela. You want them to be about that thick. I don't know how to measure that. It's probably like 1/8 of an inch. But don't drive yourself crazy. This is a very rustic dish. This is a terrific fish dish when the the weather is starting to turn a little bit, like kind of early fall into the winter. And so like the potatoes can be a little bit hearty, and they're gonna roast anyway, so they're gonna get nice and soft. So we're gonna take a little bit of canola oil, and then we're just gonna put the potatoes basically to cover the entire dish. All right, then we're gonna put a little salt and pepper on top of there. Just a tiny bit more oil. All right, so You want to preheat your oven at 400 degrees. Okay, so we're going to start out with sort of a higher heat, and then we're going to slowly cook the salmon later after the potatoes are 3/4 of the way done. So we're going to start at 400 degrees, put this in our oven. Let that cook, and then while that's cooking for about 15 minutes, we can actually start to prep the rest of our dish. We're gonna make our sauce, which is basically an uncooked sauce. It's like a salad dressing almost. Some Dijon mustard, some lemon, and a little bit of olive oil and some fresh herbs. So we're gonna put some Dijon mustard in the bowl, and then a little bit of lemon juice, freshly squeezed lemons. This is gonna work as your acidity. I mean, obviously, you know, fish and lemons are always good together. And as you know, I like to season every single component of my dishes, so you wanna put a little salt and pepper in there as well. And the Dijon mustard is gonna act obviously as a flavor component, but it's also going to help to thicken your vinaigrette or your sauce. It works as an emulsifier. So we're gonna take some olive oil, and we're just gonna slowly add a little olive oil to the mustard and the lemon juice. And if you want to, you can emulsify. You can see it sort of coming together, but if it separates, it doesn't matter. Don't even worry about it for 1 second. Because once you pour it over the salmon, and the salmon is warm, it's probably gonna separate a little bit anyway, so it's totally fine. And then I like to put some fresh herbs in here as well. So we have some fresh thyme. A little bit of parsley. And we can coarsely chop them. We can use some more herbs for some garnish later, but this is just gonna go right into the dressing. I just like when you have like these vinaigrettes that you can use, like not just for salads, but for sauces as well. And then you put it over something warm, like when the salmon comes out. And when you pour the room temperature sauce over the warm salmon, it just kind of brightens up the flavor of the sauce itself. All right, so I have some potatoes cooking in here already. I just want to show you this. Beautiful, right? You can see the potatoes are, you know, they're getting a little bit brown around the edges, but the most important thing is that they're nice and soft, that they're cooked through. So now we have our potatoes cooked, and the cazuela is still warm. So I'm just gonna take a salmon fillet, skin off, right? Just put it right on top of the potatoes, just like that. A little canola oil on top. And then some salt and pepper. And this is like, to me, this becomes the coolest part of the dish, which is the fact that now, like, as I said, the salmon is gonna cook really slowly. It's almost gonna be like, it's gonna transform from this bright orange color. It's gonna sort of become this pale orange color, and it's because the fat that's running all through the salmon is gonna melt really slowly, and basically create this really silky piece of fish. And to me, that's the key to this whole thing. It's just the texture of this is amazing. It's the best way, in my opinion, to eat salmon, and it's really easy because once you put it in the oven, that's all you have to do. All right. So we're gonna put it in the oven now. We take our oven from 400 to 250. I'm gonna turn this to 250. And another 15 minutes, we should be good to go. Salmon cooks, the juices come out of the salmon, becomes part of the potatoes, and you serve the cazuela with the potatoes, the salmon. I'm gonna show you how we sauce it. You serve it right in front of your guests. So it's basically done. You don't even have to plate it anymore. Presentation is done for you. So So here's what it looks like. You can see how the color has changed on the salmon. Look at that. And it's just cooked through. Smells so good. So we're gonna take our sauce and just pour a little sauce right on top. And I also wanna put some of the sauce right on top of the potatoes as well. You know, just kinda, you know, don't overdo it, but this sauce works with the entire dish. Now, I'm gonna take a little bit of fresh thyme, just drop some of the fresh thyme on top of the salmon. Thyme and potatoes, mustard, all goes really well together. Tear some parsley leaves. There you go, done. If you want to, you can take a little bit of lemon zest, why not, right? I always say, like, the more lemon, the better, especially when it comes to fish. And as I said, like, it's ready to serve because it's already in a beautiful serving dish. All right, so I'm gonna give this a taste. So you can see, here, take a look at the salmon there. You see how it's cooked all the way through, but it's still silky? And basically, you wanna take a little bit of the potatoes, some of the salmon, of course, some of the sauce. You have some of the crispiness of the potatoes and the bottom of the cazuela gives it a really nice crunch. And then the rest of the potatoes are cooked through, so they're nice and soft. And the silkiness of the salmon with the mustard vinaigrette, I mean, it just works so nicely. It's oven to table, right there.
That iconic Japanese dish, teriyaki salmon. But not that goopy comes out of the bottle teriyaki sauce. I'm gonna show you how the OGs do it, and it's gonna be way more delicious. Let's get into it. Before we get started, I had a bunch of sides ready to go because the fish cooks quickly. I steamed up some rice. I've steamed up some bok choy, which just means take the bok choy, steam it over water for about 4 to 5 minutes and let it kind of hang out. And then I've already toasted my sesame seeds. You can buy toasted sesame seeds, but I'm going fancy and doing it myself. And all that means is sesame seeds into a dry nonstick pan, and you want to toast it for about 5 minutes, constantly turning it. Let's spend some time on the salmon. It can come from the store in so many forms, full fillets, part fillets. This is about 2 pounds of a fillet. It can also come in steaks. So no matter how it comes from the store, these are the things I want you to look for, all right? You want the salmon to be nice and kind of orange pink in color, all right? And you know what? It's usually covered in plastic. It's okay, don't get brutal, but just kind of push down on it nice and gently like this. And if it springs back, good sign of freshness right there. If it looks moist in the package, also a really nice sign of freshness. If you can flip it over, this one is actually scaled. So there's little scales that protect the skin of the fish. If it comes scaled like this, all you need to do is pat it dry, like I'm going to do right now, and it's pretty much ready to use. If it does have scales on it, I would actually take the skin off because you don't want to be eating those scales. If you're lucky enough to have a meat department with a fishmonger, you can just say, hey, please scale this for me, or actually skin it off for me. I'm working with 2 pounds of filet salmon. This already has the pin bones removed. I want to show you a really fun way to turn this boring symmetrical block of fish into something that looks beautiful and more plateable that I would use in a restaurant. So instead of cutting downwards, kind of in perpendicular blocks, which kind of makes it look like frozen fish blocks, all I want you to do is take the knife, put it on an angle, what I call a bias, and watch what happens just by sliding the knife through. There's my first piece. Flip that over. And look at that curved side. So I'm gonna do this a few more times. And this is what us chefs do in the restaurants to create really beautiful kind of plateable pieces of salmon. And by cutting it on an angle, you have this kind of beautiful, almost like cascade piece of fish. So just by simply applying a little bit of bias slice, I've created really beautiful plateable pieces of salmon. Another really great rule in the kitchen is season everything. I know teriyaki sauce has a lot of great flavor, but to boost the flavor of the actual fish, we want to season it. And I don't mean super aggressively, but salt and pepper are basically flavor lifters. They really help bring out the natural flavor of the salmon. So season both sides. And we're going to create a glaze in the pan. So teriyaki just simply means grill glaze, right? Yaki means grill, teri means glaze. So back in the day, they would marinate their meat or fish in the actual sauce and then grill or roast it off. This is like a new school teriyaki, which is more of a Hawaiian style teriyaki. So we're actually gonna build the sauce in the pan. Let me show you how. For teriyaki, you want to use a wide skillet, and that's going to allow the sauces to kind of reduce into a glaze. We're going to heat this up. I want to put just a little bit of neutral oil. And neutral oil is high temperature oil, peanut, canola. If you're fancy, avocado, grapeseed, basically an oil that can get really hot that doesn't really give a lot of flavor because I want to taste all of these flavors. I'm gonna let that heat up and I'm just looking for wispy white smoke. It's very important that your salmon or any fish hits the pan as dry as possible because that's gonna give you an amazing crust. You always want that brown kind of crust. And the way to get that brown crust is to get your protein as dry as possible. Single-use towel, all that's just a fancy word for paper towel, right off the roll. And the drier that is, the browner and more beautiful this crust is gonna be. We're gonna start with the meat side down on the pan because that's gonna be the presentation side. I really love this kind of next generation cast iron because it's pre-seasoned, naturally non-stick, and it really will hold heat and give you a beautiful crust here on any protein, not just fish. All right, this is the waiting game. It's worth the wait, I promise. You always want the oil to be the indicator and you want it to just slightly start wisping and that's gonna tell me I'm ready to go. To build teriyaki sauce, 4 items. Really simple, old school, all right? Man, I'm gonna get really nerdy really quick. You know what? Sake, most people call this rice wine. That is actually not true, by the way, because wine is usually a fermented fruit juice, right? Like grapes. This is actually brewed from rice. So technically, I would call this a beer, if you want to be really technical. And in Japan, this is not called sake. This is called nihonshu. Sake is really just a general word for booze. So if I'm like, yo, may I have a sake? They're like, what do you want? Because sake just means alcohol. This technically is brewed rice, so this would be called nihonshu. Wow, that was nerdy. I'm so sorry, but whatever. You only learn that stuff here. This is called mirin. This is basically the nihonshu with a little sugar in it. So it's a sweetened rice alcohol. And then we're just gonna use a nice dark soy sauce. Really simple. And I'm gonna thicken that all up together with a little bit of slurry. And we're almost there. Pan is hot. That's my indicator. That's what I'm looking for right there. This is how I want you to apply your fish. Down and away. That's how it keeps you from getting burned, all right? And because the pan is smoking hot, the fish is gonna sear, basically cauterize, and it's going to not stick. It will start by sticking, but what's gonna happen is it's going to sear and lift up on its own. So let's give each piece of fish a little room, okay, to work so I don't create too much steam. And I want you to lay the salmon down flesh side because that's going to be your presentation side. When it turns over and it's nice and brown, I want to plate with that side up. With cast iron, because it heats up so well and efficiently, feel free to kind of tilt that oil and get it under all those pieces of fish. Now the best way to manipulate fish in the pan without breaking it up is a fish spatula. Let me show you what I'm talking about. It's this guy right here. Very thin, flexible to kind of get under those fish. You don't want a very rigid, wide spatula because you don't want to hurt the fish. All right, this is an art. There's actual station in a kitchen brigade, which is the fish station. And it's important to really let the fish tell you when it's ready to turn. And I want you just to kind of like take that first piece and see how I'm just kind of wiggling the fish. And I'm asking it, are you ready to move? Because if I force it now, it's not going to be this beautiful seared brown. It's right. So that's why this fish spatula is so crucial. And you're allowed to peek, by the way. And I'm gonna just let it be, right? I'm gonna respect my fish. Another really great tip is there's only one presentation side to food. So I'm really trying to nail this flesh side browning wise, right? It's not about 50-50, it's about whatever it takes to get color on that side, because once I flip it over, all these sauces are really gonna help cook the fish all the way through. So all we're trying to do is nail that beautiful brown crust. So here we go, let's try it. Drum roll, please. Oh, whew. All right, I get to keep my reputation. Second piece, looks awesome. Third, pretty darn good. And it's that last piece because it went down later. I'm gonna let the oil get under it. Are you ready? Can we do this? Let's do that, here we go. Beautiful. So fish spatulas totally worth the investment. They're not that expensive, by the way. All right, so the fish is seared on the top side. I'm gonna get rid of any of these crispy bits because I don't want them to burn. And now I'm gonna actually build the sauce, and the sauce is gonna help cook the fish through. Lower your heat down. I went from a very high sear now to a medium temperature because I'm gonna add the liquids. Sake or Nihonshu is alcohol. So when you're pouring sake into the pan, make sure your pan is not ripping and always pour away from you like this. Watch, I'm just gonna put the sauce away from you. So I always wanna pour away, making sure I don't ignite that. If you're really nervous about it, turn off the heat, let the pan cool a little bit, then pour your sake in, then turn the heat back on. Sake's in. That's gonna give us a beautiful aroma. The next ingredient is going to be mirin, and that's kind of that sweetened sake. So that's gonna give you a beautiful sweetness and start to build that glaze. My kids love to spoon a ton of sauce over. You can always double this sauce recipe into the pan. That's not going to make this any more or less salty. Does that make sense? It's just gonna give you more sauce to sop up that beautiful fish. The last seasoning is soy sauce. The next thing will be actually thickening. And check it out, I'm pouring it right onto the fish. I'm not trying to pour it to the side. So, teriyaki sauce. If you wanna get fancy here, pineapple juice, pretty fancy, just a little bit of grated ginger is also fancy and totally acceptable. We've made this sauce in terms of flavoring, right? Now we need to turn this into a glaze, and that's gonna happen by way of cornstarch slurry. Cornstarch is magic, right? It thickens everything. And how it does it is it distributes itself in the sauce, and then at 160 to 180 degrees, it actually swells up and gelatinizes. The only way to get the cornstarch in and not clumpy is to introduce it in some cold water first. And this is called a slurry. The liquid is simmering, and that tells me that it's about 212. That's what the boiling point of water is. Now, what I really want to do is get this cornstarch whisked in pretty quickly. I want to distribute the cornstarch in the sauce. And you're gonna see these bubbles actually churn tighter, if you notice, and that just means the cornstarch is starting to activate. And you never have to actually flip the fish over again because you nailed that presentation side. And I'm just gonna stir this now. Okay, so I'm waiting for the cornstarch to activate. You actually start to see it go from kind of opaque or cloudy to become this beautiful kind of glaze. I'm there. So let's turn off the heat, and I'm gonna show you how to plate this up beautifully. So the only garnish we're gonna need are the scallions. Line up your roots, cut them right off. Line up the tops. Find that place where you can cut them and get a nice clean cut. Whites and greens get separated. And then I'm gonna find like the pretty side of the scallion and again, cut it into a nice thin bias. I like to use whites and greens. There's no reason to kind of favor one over the other. So that's gonna be hanging out, ready to go. Bok choy wise, you know what? Let's figure it out. I'm looking at my bok choy and I'm looking at my plate. What do I wanna do? These are pretty aggressive. So let's just cut these. Does a half work? Half works, right? If you wanna do quarters, we can do quarters too. So don't worry about it. I really like bok choy as the accompaniment. It's a nice bitter green and it really counterbalances the sweetness of this dish very well. So I'm gonna just cut these and leave them hanging and then put the fish down and then we'll figure out what looks nice. If you're doing individual rice bowls like I do at home for my kids, you can actually just make individual bowls of rice, put a piece of salmon, bok choy, and sauce it down. All right, here we go. I want to move the product basically closer to my serving area so you can kind of see how I build this all together. Bok choy base. Let's get the salmon down. Nice and gentle. Of course, need tons of sauce. We'll garnish. We're gonna do the sesame seeds. Of course, the scallions. So there it is, friends. Salmon teriyaki, roasted bok choy, white rice, seared crispy salmon, beautiful sweet teriyaki glaze. This is kind of my idea of the perfect meal to hang out with my family. Thanks so much for cooking with me, and we'll see you next time.
I'm just gonna roll some pieces of nice fatty salmon in spices. Fish can seem tricky. When you get a nice piece from the center, it's a piece of cake. And I have to tell you, even raw, this is totally mouth-watering. This is where we're gonna blacken the fish with just a simple mixture of a few ingredients. I'm gonna start with about a tablespoon of dried oregano, one of my favorites, a little cayenne, tablespoon, all mixed together. And I always like one fresh element, a little fresh thyme. Just a few sprigs, and just flake them off gently. And now just mix that all together. And now, coat your fish. So just toss them a little bit. And by rubbing it in this blackening mixture, you're gonna see that when we cook it, the spices are gonna get nice and brown, and they're just gonna look ready. It's gonna be like a natural indicator to you that's really gonna help you cook this fish. I have a screaming hot pan. I'm saying 5 minutes after you're comfortable with a hot pan, that's when you should add your oil and start cooking the fish. Now I'm gonna start on the flesh side, keeping that skin side for last. You can hear that fresh thyme crackling. That's why it's so fun to add a fresh herb to a dry spice mix. Once you've positioned the fish in the pan, resist the temptation to fuss with it. The best cooking is done when you just give stuff a minute to cook in peace. And you're gonna see when I turn this over how incredible that spice rub makes this fish look. It just turns something bronze into gold with diamonds. So just move it ever so slightly to make sure it's not sticking. And just turn it over on its other side. See how it has that wonderful toasted look? Now you can really smell it. So I've just cooked my fish on all sides and just enough to brown those spices. And you can kind of give the fish a little squeeze and it should still feel tender to the touch. So now I'm ready to take them out. You can see that wonderful, crispy skin underneath. It's like mouth-watering when you take them out of the pan. And I always finish fish the same way, really simply, with just a nice squeeze of fresh lemon juice. Okay. Wonderful, roasted, aromatic taste. It's delicious. See, the fish is still piping hot. Look at how juicy it is. You know, the spices, they give a little bit of heat to the salmon, but it still lets the salmon and the flavor of the actual fish be the center of the ingredient.
Just because it's a weeknight dinner doesn't mean it has to be boring. Nobody wants a boring dinner. My roasted salmon tacos are so delicious, and they're fun, and they're really easy to make. And they start with a rub for the salmon. So, first thing I have is about a teaspoon of lime zest. I think lime and salmon go really well together. And the next is 2 teaspoons of chipotle chili powder. And then, of course, we need salt. 1.5 teaspoons of salt. I actually love rubs because you know what? You put it right on the fish, goes right in the oven, and it has so much flavor. Okay, next thing is the salmon. So I have 1 3/4 pounds of salmon. I actually have it in one piece. You can do it in steaks, but I think it stays moister in one piece. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna brush it with lime juice. The lime juice is not only gonna flavor it, but it's gonna make the rub stick to it. Just fresh lime juice. And then I'm just gonna sprinkle this right on. I think with a spoon, just like that. Evenly sprinkle it on. Just think how much flavor this is gonna add. Most tacos are made with fried fish, which is not only a mess, but I think it's kind of better for you. And the nice thing about roasting this is all you have to do is throw it in the oven, set a timer, and forget about it. This goes into a 425-degree oven for about 12 to 15 minutes until it's just barely cooked. And at the same time, I want to heat up the tortillas. I'm going to put them right in the oven with the salmon, same temperature. So the next thing I need for my salmon tacos is mashed avocados. That's 4 avocados. I need some lime juice, about 2 tablespoons, and this gives it flavor, but also keeps them from turning brown. I use sriracha. I like the flavor of it. You can use as much or as little as you like. You want a little heat, but not too much. A teaspoon of salt, about a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, and I'm just gonna mash it up. It's a little like making guacamole, but it's not guacamole. Actually, don't over mash this. I like to be creamy and chunky both together. Okay, the last part is slaw. This is it, and it couldn't be simpler to make. I put 3/4 pound of shredded green cabbage into a bowl with half a seedless cucumber that I sliced thinly on a mandolin. Then poured over a 1/4 cup of white wine vinegar, tossed in 3 tablespoons of minced fresh dill, sprinkled over some salt, pepper, and just mixed everything together. I think the salmon's ready. Absolutely perfect. How gorgeous does that look? And the tortillas are ready? Hot, which is exactly what they should be. Okay, I've got all the elements ready. I take a tortilla, nice warm one. Big dollop of mashed avocado on one side. Some flaked salmon, one sort of big piece of flaked salmon. Look how gorgeous that is. Put it right on top. Yum. Some of the slaw on the other side. And then I take a second one and do exactly the same thing. Okay, just a little bit of salt. Well, that's roasted salmon tacos. Not bad for a weeknight dinner.
I got some cocoa powder here, Sonny.
like
You will
that.
be
What
my
am I
stew.
doing?
We got those lovely rainbow
Get my
carrots.
readers
It's just
out.
a nice little vegetable. They're easy to make. We're gonna roast them. I got some wonderful skinless salmon fillets, about 3 ounces each. I'm just gonna hit them with a little, while we're making everything else, a little bit of kosher salt, and this kind of tightens it up. Let's start with our butter here. We're gonna take 4 tablespoons or a half a stick of butter. All right, melt it up and kind of let it bloom with a couple cloves of garlic.
Yes.
Chopped up, just to get the essence in there. I don't want a ton of garlic, but I want that flavor to marry with that butter. So let that go. Next, let's make our rub. Again, cocoa powder. Go to the pantry pull and get your cocoa powder you use for your brownies or whatever. All right, some chipotle powder, some coriander ground, and then to tie it all and give that caramelization a little something extra sweet, which that cocoa powder loves, some light brown sugar. How easy is that?
I do my salmon very similar to this. But no cocoa powder. So next time maybe I'll add in.
You know, you got it in there. All right, so we're just gonna kind of, again, we don't want to cook this. We want that garlic to mellow out. I don't want like the chunks of garlic on it. I just want to kind of speed this up. Sometimes you can smash the garlic cloves and get the essence in there. But this way, once that's perfecto, we can start painting that butter right on here. You smell that?
I smell
We
it.
got the salt on there. We have all the other spices in our rub ready to go. And this is gonna be the glue for that cocoa rub.
I tell you, I just love salmon.
Yeah.
It is one of my
Yeah.
favorite meals, and so perfect for a date night because it doesn't take a long time to cook.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
All right, here we go.
Crazy.
All right, now we're gonna give it a nice, look at
Jeff,
that.
you gonna
Oh,
bake
that's a
that? Or you
lot.
gonna
Oh, we're
sear
baking it.
Okay. Maybe broil it? No?
You know, but the thing about salmon is it's great savory. But every once in a while, I'll do like a barbecue rub that has sugar in it, or like a honey glaze with everything bagel seasoning.
400 degrees. This is going in the oven
about
along
these?
with these. Why don't you come
Dry?
follow
Should
me?
I have olive oil these?
20 minutes, yeah. Hit it with a little olive oil, salt, and pepper. We'll get back to that in a second, please, Sonny. But this is going top rack for about 20 minutes. I like my salmon. Sarah likes her salmon about medium well. So you can actually temp
I'm
your
a medium
salmon.
weller.
So yeah, 20 minutes, but you can always pop in a instant read thermometer about 130, 135. Don't overcook this, all right? And then sometimes if you can see the top is not caramelized, just throw it under the broiler for a minute or two. These are gonna go right under that, again, 20 minutes, same oven, 400 degrees. These are gonna roast till both are perfectly caramelized. Delicious, but remember, you can't hurry love or this dish. So we'll keep cooking and show you how this turns out after the break.
All right.
When we come back, dinner is served. No reservation needed.
This is truly like a perfect dish, in my opinion.
And later, the 2024 Food Network Hot List revealed.
All right, so you're gonna get us started?
Let's do it.
Welcome back. Our cocoa chili rub salmon and rainbow carrots are almost ready for our date night at home. I have that roasted salmon with that chili rub, that garlic butter.
God.
It bloomed in there. It magnified. It intensified all that natural kind of depthness from that cocoa powder. Remember, we had the chipotle powder in there, the coriander, some classic flavors.
That brown
combined
sugar, baby.
in that, like, you know, and that butter we did
That
with the
looks
garlic.
like you got it in a
basted
restaurant.
Doesn't look
It's
great.
giving restaurant vibes 100%.
I treat my salmon like steak. I want it to rest a little bit.
Yes.
Let it tighten up. In the meantime, let's get to our kind of crispy quinoa or a little sauce for this. We got some fresh dill.
What do you need?
All right,
Chop,
Sonny,
chop?
chop it up as small as possible. Meanwhile, we got some browned butter. It's cooled down a little bit, ready to go. But turn it back up to medium. To this, we're gonna make this kind of little glaze for our carrots, right? That brown butter and some honey.
Oh, yum.
They give it a little bit of citrus
Got a
for
brown butter.
a little zest from orange and some juice from this orange as well. We're gonna let this simmer for a couple minutes, just come together. And then we can drizzle this over our carrots, which I have in the oven still right under that salmon. I have, look at this. You say, why the rainbow carrots? Why do we peel them?
So pretty.
They just have such a beautiful, just, you know, festive look to it. You don't get many other carrots.
Yeah.
Because they're just orange.
They're pretty.
Normally.
Yeah.
All right, so what we're gonna do really quickly is push these aside, okay? Here I have some cooked quinoa, right? Remember we said we're gonna make it crispy?
Yep.
We're gonna finish these guys, double duty on the pan, save on the dishes,
Okay.
save on the time and the oven space. I don't know about you guys, but I only have one oven at home. I really do.
just
I mean, I'm
this
like,
is the
it's
embarrassment
like
of
one
riches.
notch above Katie.
Yeah.
One oven I have. Just gonna hit this with a little oil, a little salt and pepper, and this is gonna go back in that 400-degree oven for about 20 more minutes where it's gonna intensify, crisp up, give ourselves a little crunchy texture. So we're gonna shut this down. We just kind of married the brown butter, the honey, and of course all that citrus and orange juice, just a little bit on there.
I like how it's gonna definitely meander with the quinoa.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Awesome. Going back in the oven about 20 minutes. And this is what it's gonna look like when we're done. Magic happens in here, right? Everything kind of starts to mingle, but we separate it so you can see how crispy and
Wow.
Oh, nice.
got it.
Team texture.
All right, so we have that fresh dill. We're gonna garnish with that. We have some fresh dill in here as well, and this is yogurt. whole fat Greek yogurt, some lime juice, and some tahini, giving it a whole nother element.
I like that.
Right? And I don't know, I just love the rainbow carrots, the yogurt vibe, all that. I think it's just classic now. We're gonna start plating, okay? We got our
you
salmon
about to
ready
do a
to go.
smear on a
We got
plate?
this, we're gonna do
You
a
gonna do a
smear
fancy
scheme.
restaurant smear?
Look at that. Just a little bit on there. Just give it a little smear.
Date
Get
night,
as
babe.
creative as you want. Now I have these carrots, the crispy quinoa. We are ready to go. Take these guys, start plating them willy-nilly here. Cross. Look at that, the red, the yellow, the orange.
Oh, they're glistening.
All right,
A
you
little
can always
spat or
pass a little bit
something,
of that.
you good?
We got our warm salmon. Look at that. Of course, you could do this single on a plate.
This is perfect to have right before you get on the couch and watch TV for the rest of the night.
And you put this out. Thank you, Sonny. Ooh, crispy, little salmon, and a little quinoa in there.
Oh, you wildin', Jeff.
A little bit,
crunch,
just kind of
crunch.
around.
Oh, wow.
Not covering up all that
That
hard
is
work
some
we've done with that
beautiful
caramelization. Look at that.
Gorgeous.
Go ahead. I knew you wanted. That's pretty much batter for Sonny right there. We got some fresh dill.
Oh, wow.
This is so pretty.
Look at me liking healthy stuff.
Oh,
Oh.
look at that, all in one.
That's beautiful,
Wow.
Jeff.
Look at the transfer.
Oh, Jeff, I'm gonna need a knife too.
That's okay. I won't judge you. Jeffrey just
Gorgeous.
needs your
Getting into
chopsticks.
the
Ooh.
carrot first. Like candy.
Yeah.
So beautiful. Oh my gosh, Jeff.
Crazy.
Right?
It looked crazy.
The fish is so caramelized all the way, like a 360, having the cocoa, the spices, the hint of the garlic butter.
This is
It's like
bonkers.
the perfect texture, perfectly cooked. Those carrots are just like candied carrots. They're so good with the honey. This is truly like a perfect dish, in my opinion. Might be my favorite thing that you've ever made.
Oh!
Murder, she wrote.
And you've made
Yeah.
a lot of really good salmon dishes. This is fantastic. Like, nobody get near this.
High-end restaurants probably use fresh salmon, but I'm using canned salmon. So I'm gonna make a little mixture to form the burger patties. So I started with a little bit of mayonnaise, an egg. I'm gonna add some Dijon mustard, a good old spoonful. So I'm using Old Bay seasoning, about a teaspoon. Oh, it smells so good. And then I'm gonna do sort of a heaping cup of panko crumbs. This is sort of the filler for the salmon. And then I drained the 2 cans of salmon. And then I'll squeeze in half a lemon. And to help with the flavor, I'm gonna add a whole bunch of sliced green onions. And I think that's it. Oh, pepper. Have pepper. Gotta have pepper. Okay, now I'm gonna smush all this together. It's just nice to be able to turn something into a really exciting dish. Divide this into quarters. So you just wanna form the patties. You don't want them to be too thick that they don't kind of set and cook in the middle, but you don't want them to be too little either. I've got a skillet that's kind of hot already. I've got some olive oil in there. So as I form them, I'm just gonna put them straight in. Okay, so they're frying away. I'm gonna kind of flatten them out. Some are bigger than others. They are not uniform by any means. So I'm gonna let these cook on the first side. Now I'm gonna flip them. They're so golden and luscious. Wow, how about that? Okay, so I'm gonna let them finish cooking on the second side. And of course, I can't leave well enough alone. I have to have a really delicious mayo to put on the buns for the burgers. So I've got the mayo. I'm gonna add some capers and more lemon. Whenever you've got any sort of fish or seafood, you want a lot of lemon. It just kind of brightens it all up. Plenty of pepper. Okay, I'm gonna stir, stir. I'm gonna get the bun and I'm gonna spread plenty of this. I mean, I really wanna taste the mayo, guys. What can I say? And then I'll get one of the salmon patties. This one looks tasty. Look, Stu.
Look at that.
How good does that look?
Perfectly
Wow.
browned.
Right on. The good thing about salmon patties is they don't shrink. So you know when you make a ground beef patty and they kind of shrink. So basically you can just form this to the exact size of the bun you're using and your life will be smooth sailing. So a little bit of lettuce and a tomato and some pickles, of course. You can do jalapenos, you can do thinly sliced red onion, but look at this. Wow. I think it looks so pretty.
Crab cakes always have a wonderful mix of vegetables in them, and I like to use red peppers and onions. I'm going to saute them until they're just softened. 1 tablespoon of olive oil, 1 tablespoon of butter, and I mix the two. Olive oil has a higher burning temperature, butter has more flavor. So I get the best of both qualities by mixing them. So I've already chopped up the vegetables, actually. I have half a cup of red pepper, half a cup of yellow pepper, 3/4 of a cup of red onion, and 1½ cups of chopped celery. They're all small diced. I'm a big believer that you really only need like 10 recipes. And if you can make each one of those recipes 3 different ways, you've got a repertoire of 30 recipes. I mean, how many recipes do you need? And this is one of those recipes. I make crab cakes, I make salmon cakes. If I have leftover lobster, I make lobster cakes. Okay, now for some great seasonings. These have to have a lot of flavor, and they're all things that you can find in your pantry. A little parsley, like 1/4 cup. I actually don't pick the leaves off the parsley. What I do is just run your knife along the stems and just chop them up. And the stems are just fine. If it's something like rosemary, you can't eat the stems, so you want to pick the leaves off. Okay, so about 1/4 cup right in. And now some spices. I like capers in it. It has sort of a vinegary edge. That's nice, a few tablespoons. Worcestershire sauce. A dash of it. It smells great. A hit of Tabasco, give it some heat. As much as you dare. Some Old Bay seasoning, which is classic for crab cakes and salmon cakes, any kind of fish cakes. Lots of salt and pepper to make sure it has great flavor. I'm gonna let this just simmer for about 20 minutes until all the vegetables and the flavors are blended and the vegetables are softened. This smells wonderful. And it looks great. I love the colorful sort of confetti idea of it. Okay, I'm gonna get some salmon to put in. I need roast salmon. I've actually roasted it already and chilled it so it would flake really easily. Let me tell you how I did it. I just bought 1/2 pound of salmon fillet on the skin and I put it on a sheet pan. I brushed it with olive oil, sprinkled it with salt and pepper, and roasted it at 350 degrees for about 20 minutes until it was almost done. Then I took it out and wrapped it in foil and allowed it to sit at room temperature for 10 minutes to finish the cooking. I have about 1/2 pound of salmon fillet, and it's really important that it's cold, otherwise it's just a mess. I need about 1 cup of breadcrumbs. That should be just about right. And then to bind them together, keep them really moist, I'm gonna do 1/2 cup of mayonnaise. Two teaspoons of good Dijon mustard. And 2 eggs. I'm just gonna mix all this up. And the vegetables should be cool a little bit. You want the vegetables cool because you don't want the egg to cook when they go in. Otherwise you have scrambled eggs. Just mix this all together. And then I'm gonna make salmon cakes and fry them. A little bit of butter and oil. This is a great mixture. It's got all kinds of vegetables and the capers and salmon. It's gonna be just delicious. So I'm gonna chill it now. When it's chilled, it's easier to make into salmon cakes. It's firmer. Okay, that's the last one. It's 10 salmon cakes. And when my friend Laura Donnelly gets here, we're gonna saute them up.
These look good too. And it's fluffy too.
What do we have in here? We have brown sugar, some butter to start. This is the mustard and brown sugar glaze for the salmon. And you've melted that, and then we add a little bit of soy sauce and some honey, and we're gonna add the Dijon mustard now at the end. And here, you know what, take that off the heat, Jane.
Okay.
Just kind of pull it over here.
All right.
And stir it up. Okay. You wanna add the mustard off the heat because you don't want it to break, you don't want it to separate.
Oh, okay.
All right? Let that cook, keep stirring that for about 4 or 5 minutes. All right, Patrice, here's the deal, all right? Joey brought us this great salmon.
Yes, he did.
And we don't want to ruin it. So I just want you to
leave it to me.
I'll leave it. See, confidence is high.
Yes.
And you brought your own plane with you
One
too.
of my favorite things.
All right, olive oil, salt and
Brush it?
pepper. Yeah, just brush it lightly. You don't have to put a
Okay.
lot on.
Right.
And then we'll go over to the grill.
Okay.
I put a couple on, but we have some hungry people. Is that hot? Let's
Let me
what's going
see.
on here.
Yeah.
You see, I just put the salmon on the grill like this. I'm just gonna flip it over. It comes right off the grill. I mean, see, that's what I'm talking about, all right?
You like a lot of pepper, or?
Yeah, I do like a lot of pepper. Do you like a lot of pepper?
Mm-hmm.
Then put a lot on.
Okay, here we go.
Beautiful. All right,
Hands,
now throw them right on the grill.
Okay.
Flesh side down.
Bobby,
Perfect.
Patrice, do you cook your salmon at the same temperature that you cook your vegetables?
Well, what I like to do is I like to use a hot grill, okay, like this one, and just leave the salmon alone. You know, I cook it on the flesh side, you see, and it just came right off the grill.
Yeah.
Very often people are intimidated about cooking fish because it sticks all the time.
This
okay?
is one of the easiest ones to cook.
It is,
because it's firm fleshed.
It's firm fleshed and it
Yeah.
has a lot of fat content, so
Yeah.
it's awesome. And I like to leave the skin on because it also helps keep it together. Are you still stirring?
I'm still stirring.
Okay, well, why don't we start brushing? The idea here now we want to get, now at this point, you know, this salmon is perfectly fine. Yeah, it's olive oil, salt, and pepper, and a great piece of fish. You can take this off, squeeze a lemon, and
Perfect.
it's perfect. But this is hot off the grill.
So we have to
And we have to
spice it up.
complicate things a little bit. So we're gonna add we're gonna add a little bit of this glaze that we made. Really simple ingredients. And this is something that can be done days ahead of time because the sugars really preserve it all, right? It's the brown sugar, the mustard, the whole thing. The whole nine, as we like to say. All right, who wants to do this?
I can do it or Patrice, either way.
Well, okay, we're gonna have a fight here.
No, go ahead.
Why don't you guys
I'll
flip a
flip.
coin?
I'll flip, and you brush. I'll flip.
Okay, fine. Here we go. What am I gonna do? All right.
You just stand there and look pretty, Bobby.
Oh, thank you very much. Now, Jane, you just brush it right on top of
All
it.
right.
You don't want to put this glaze on before you grill the fish, because then it will probably burn because of the sugars and everything. How's that look?
Looks really good.
That looks so good.
Looks awesome. Now let's see. Now, if you notice, we haven't touched the fish that you put on yet. I'm not so sure it's ready to come up yet. Yeah, actually, we're gonna let it cook for a couple more minutes. Exactly.
Then it just releases by itself.
Exactly. We're taking the salmon off the grill. Patricia's throwing some. We have some cilantro here. You can use any kind of herb you want. Actually, I like to take some chives also. Just kind of sprinkle them on. All right. You want to bring these over?
My pleasure.
Now, we're drinking Pinot Noir here, and we have Gary, our wine guy. Salmon and Pinot Noir, red wine?
Everybody kept saying, what white wine are we having now? What wine are we having now? And I said, no, we're having red wine. A nice fruit-driven Pinot Noir from Caneros, which is right in between Napa and Sonoma. They get a cool growing season, so it takes a long time for the grapes to come through. It is rich. The salmon is a help me out here.
Rich.
Buttery.
Flavorful fish.
There's almost no tannin in here.
There is the reason why we
I
like
mean, it
Pinot
really
for this is there is no tannin whatsoever. It won't compete with the fish. It will complement the fat of the fish.
It's delicious.
Patrice, you cooked this perfectly. This is awesome.
So first I'm going to make the lentils. I'm going to pour boiling water over the top and just let them soak for about 10 minutes so they soften. So I'm going to put the lentils aside. I'm going to saute all kinds of vegetables, cook the lentils with it, and then saute the salmon separately and put it together. So a little bit of olive oil. I have 2 cups of onions. I'm just going to saute them together. And 2 cups of leeks. They're both pretty much in the same family, but the leeks are a little more delicate than the onions. They're great together. And some fresh thyme, about a teaspoon. None of this has to be exact. So, just saute this for about 10 minutes until the onion's translucent. A little bit of salt. Some pepper. And while that's cooking, I'm going to cut up some carrot and celery. put in about a tablespoon of chopped garlic. Cook that for a minute. And then 1½ cups of chopped celery. 1½ cups of chopped carrots. So this is really chunky. It's got lots of flavor, and the lentils are just part of it. Just gonna saute that for a second. 1½ cups of chicken stock. Two tablespoons of tomato paste. Just stir it in. I'm gonna add the lentils. I'm going to cook these together for about 20 minutes, the lentils and the vegetables. Then I'm going to sear the salmon, and then I'm off to Michael's.
Second mission done. Boy, am I ready for Anna's takeout lunch.
The key to the salmon is to just sear the outside, so you make a really crisp crust, and then it seals in all the flavor. Drizzle this with a little bit of oil. Okay. Lots of salt and pepper. This is really the only seasoning, so you want to make sure you season it really well. Okay, really hot pan. Just make sure you can really feel it. And then take the salmon and put it in seasoning side down. And just leave it. I know it's really tempting to move it around, but you want to really create a really great crust. So I'm just going to cook it on this side for about 2 minutes and then flip it over and roast it in the oven, and it'll be perfect. It's sort of crusty on the outside and tender inside. Okay, 2 minutes. Let's turn it over. Okay, into the oven for about 5 to 7 minutes at 450 degrees. This is how they cook it in restaurants, and it comes out perfectly. I'm just gonna finish the lentils, and then I'm off to Michael's. Oh, the salmon's perfectly cooked. This is gonna be wonderful. So I have a little bit left to do on the lentils. So I'm gonna add about 2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar. It just really sort of perks up the flavor a lot. Let's see how this is. I can smell it. I love when it hits the heat. It's delicious. A little more salt. Always needs a little more. The sweetness of the red wine vinegar and the carrots and lentils, it's gonna be great with the salmon. So I'm just gonna take a platter and just fill it up. The good news is it's good hot, but it's also good room temperature. Salmon on top. And then the leftovers, I'm gonna put in the refrigerator. Love leftovers, don't have to cook tomorrow night. So I'm gonna pack all this up, pack up the pecan bars and the shrimp with Thousand Island dip, and I'm off to Michael's. Hi, Michael. Hi, sweetie.
Good to see you.
Mwah. So I brought lunch for us. How's that?
Food? Fabulous. How did you make the shrimp?
Well, I actually roasted them. It's amazing. Big sheet pan, salt and pepper, olive oil in the oven. It's really fast. And I just think it has so much more flavor. Yeah. Didn't grill them. I'm glad you like them. Ready for salmon?
Yes.
Salmon and lentils.
One of my favorite combinations.
Oh, it is? Really?
It really
I'm
is.
so glad.
I love lentils.
How did I know
love
that?
Salmon. Grilled, roasted.
It's roasted.
It is?
Yeah, it's roasted.
This couldn't have been better.